Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season 1 finale of Devil May Cry. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up in the aftermath of the last episode, where, hey, Rabbit isn't dead. He's still alive. Should have figured as much. You saw the blood, but you still I should have been like, and maybe they'll pull that thread, maybe they won't. No, he's still alive, and he eats another demon, the demon that lady first killed when she showed up last episode. And now it's like, oh, he's still alive, so I ate him, and I mutated my body even more. So all the while that's happening, Baines and his people are setting up a photo op because they're like piling up all the demon bodies, and it's like, oh, I want there to be guns on them to make it seem like, yeah, the U.S. military did this, specifically wanting to herald Lady as their champion, because the last thing you want, it's like, yeah, Dante's a useful tool, but you don't want him to be the poster child. You want Lady to be the poster child of like your administration and what the government's doing. Like, you want to roll this out to be like, let the world know, oh my God, there's demons alive and they're real, but we have a champion amongst us that you can always count on the U.S. government to see this through. So it's interesting because Dante wants to keep his amulet, but Lady's like, no, you're going to have to fetch that over. And he's like, what? No. Like, who do you believe to trust, like, keeping that safe? It's like, she's like Baines, but he's like, that guy, he doesn't really care about anyone. She's like, yes, he has to be hard, but that's only because he cares about people. Once again, Lady is completely unaware that Baines is the one that gave the orders to kill the Macayans in episode 6. Not in episode 6, in episode 5. She's completely unaware that. Once again, she's thinking that they died because of rabbits. Like, no, the guy you serve is kind of a religious zealot that has his own motivations, that he will cast people aside. And even then, he comes over to Lady and tells her how much of a disappointment she is. Because let's not forget, she is a woman that's hurt and in pain, and having gone through what she's gone through, she found a pseudo father figure in Baines, someone that is proud of her, someone who fostered the flames in her. But he even said it himself. She's great and all that, like that strength and that radical, like that power we need. But sometimes, like a good dog, she needs to be brought to heel. So if she knew how he viewed her, that it's like, you aren't like, he doesn't respect you in the eyes of a soldier. You are a tool. You are a means to an end that he will sacrifice. And Mary's like, yeah, if I have to sacrifice myself, sure, if it's for the greater cause, but is this for the greater cause, or is this one man's ambitions? You know, some very zealot-esque ambition he has. But it's like, oh yeah, where's the amulet? Where's Force Edge? And it's like, they kind of lie and say it all went down with White Rabbit. Hell, even Dante and Lady were about to duke it out because she was like, oh, I'm going to take the amulet from you. But luckily, Enzo he's like, whoa, kind of, prisoner to captor romance thing going on here and kind of ease the tensions. But then Rabbit shows up and starts slaughtering everybody. Anders grabbed Rabbit's device that opened the portals, got on the same helicopter as Baines as he escaped while everyone else was left, lambs to the slaughter. And so Dante and Lady work together. Their bullets can't pierce through, or at least they're not having the effect they normally would against a demon, because so much of his DNA is still human. Because he is still human, he just used demons' parts to mutate himself. So too much of his blood is still human to have the impact of, because those bullets act like regular bullets on humans. So they're piercing him, not even fully piercing because his body's too tough, but even if they do make it through, they're not exploding because they're acting like regular bullets instead of anti-demon bullets. Doesn't help that Dante broke her gun like he does all the other guns, and like broke the like handle and trigger piece to it all. Then I thought Enzo was going to come in clutch because he picked up Lady's weapon, but I was like, please don't. I thought he was going to get a shot off or something like that, but he decided to protect Dante. It's like, oh man, he had just said like, oh, we're still working together. Dante's like, my rate's 3 times as much, but he's like, yeah, who could else I work with who I can know that he's going to sell me out? So reliable. And even later on, he's like, Enzo, you need to get somewhere safe. Oh, there you are, running for your life. And it's so reliable. And I was like, wow, I was almost hoping like Enzo would kind of make it through, because there's not too many like random NPCs that like recur throughout the Devil May Cry games. There's connective tissue between some of the NPCs, but for the most part, like, you don't have a continuous like group of characters that like stick with Dante. I mean, except for like the important people, but like non-people that aren't fully mixed into Dante's business and aren't directly in his world. Like Enzo's in his world, but not to the same extent like a lady or another character I'm not going to name drop that I've referenced before. Like those are people more directly in his world that obviously continue throughout, but yeah, like I don't think there's that many people in Dante's circle that you continuously see. But yeah, Enzo sacrificed himself and it pisses Dante off, and he triggers a little bit of that demon in him. Because the whole point is, let's go for the valve thing in his chest, because it's like that's the only thing keeping him going, because he is still human enough, and without that, his condition will worsen. But yeah, that fight, it was a tit for tat back and forth. I love that hit Dante took that sent him flying through multiple buildings. And it's like, oh, here you are coughing up blood. Last thing Rabbit needs. But luckily, Lady came through. Didn't mean anything because Rabbit chases after them. And ultimately, he is able to surprise Dante and get the blood he needs, because he tells Dante, like, right, I've got Force Edge now and the amulet, and I made the Sword of Sparta. I don't know why I don't always do that. When I'm referencing the sword, why don't I just say the Sword of Sparta instead? Because the sword's name is just Sparta. I don't think they even call it Sword of Sparta. They just call it Sparta, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that's the way to delineate between the actual sword itself and Sparta, or you could just be like Sparta sword, whatever the case may be. But he makes the sword and he stabs Dante after telling him, like, because he's like, oh, I just need your bloodline. He's like, well, there's only me, my brother. It's like, nope, your brother's still alive. He's like, no, I watched him kill him. It's like, no, your brother's alive. And kind of uses that against Dante, being like, yeah, you abandoned your brother. Like, look at this. You've helped make this all come true. Now that he's got Dante's blood, literally got him impaled. Wouldn't be the first time Dante's been impaled by a sword. Kind of goes back to the whole episode 4 thing of getting killed by your own blade is ironic. In this case, it makes it even more ironic, considering, like, well, this was meant to be the thing that sealed away the demon world, is breaking the demon world into the human world, but also it's your father's own sword named after him, so you getting stabbed by Sparta. There's layers to it, but mainly goes back to that conversation with Agni in episode 4 about getting murked by your own weapon. But the demon world starts bleeding through. Also, we saw the lady from episode 1, the mom and child, and it's like, oh, they're still alive, so Shapeshifter didn't kill you. Because I forgot to circle back to that, because we know how plasma works. The baby was never dead. The baby was just somewhere else. So I guess maybe after he was done, he put the baby back and was like, oh, in case I ever need that baby form again, or I don't really need a kid. I don't know. Her and her baby are fine, but it's like, well, I thought at least maybe she would be dead, but once again, that was before we later on found out in the season, like, Plasma needs his, like, whoever he's shapeshifting into, he needs them to be alive. Either way, the world is bleeding over, and it comes down to Mary. One last shot, jackpot, strikes the point she needs to, and this gives Dante the moment, because he's like, you should have never mentioned Virgil. Draws out Sparta, activates his devil trigger, and kills Rabbit. But Rabbit gets off that final villain line of, you're eventually going to have to choose you've chosen a side and you think it's the right side, but eventually you'll come to regret that, because you will be the child that was abandoned, the orphan that will go unloved, because no side will accept you. The demons won't accept you, the humans won't accept you, which is ironic coming from this guy, but I guess for him it's like, I'm more accepted by the demons than even you are. But Dante slices them in half and is like, yep, he's dead for sure this time. I did think it was interesting because Dante's got Force Edge, which once again is so interesting because, like, Rebellion got flown out of his hands and it's somewhere else. Because that's also the interesting thing going into it, because, like, obviously Force Edge is a significant weapon, but so is Yamato and Rebellion. They have their own purposes. So I'm like, I'd assume the U.S. government swooped, or Darkcom in particular, swooped in and grabbed Rebellion. We see the Amulet and Force Edge later because they're the ones that forge Sparta and they're necessary to open the gate. But Rebellion and Yamato have their own significant purposes as well. So that it's not like we're done with Rebellion. And so, once again, it's so interesting considering that weapon wasn't introduced until the second game, and that's become Dante's signature weapon going forward. That's his standard signature weapon in every entry, except for 5, because, well, no spoilers. Either way, So it seems like, hey, everything's hunky-dory, everything's great. It all ended, but then Dante's like, well, my brother's still alive, so I should probably go and try and find him. And it's like, hey, you should come work with me. It's like, yeah, Dante and Lady. She's like, my name's Mary. He's like, It sounds better, Dante. He's like, I like Lady better. She's like, well, how about Lady and Dante? I was like, oh, is this really going to be how this goes? But I was like, are you going to try and take the end? She injects him. I'm like, well, fuck me. It's like, well, she's like, she is apologetic. She's like, but this just proves more and more what Bane said was right. What you're capable of doing and your blood and everything is too dangerous to leave out there in the world. I'm sorry. And at the same time this is happening, Bane's is enacting his plan. I'm wondering whether Anders told him the truth, because Anders was like, Rabbit wanted me to destroy this device because he wanted it not to land in human hands. I'm like, why didn't you? Well, I guess it's like there's so many people around. There was so much going on. So I guess you were going to go back to Darkcom base, sneak away and destroy it. Because I'm like, what was your plan? Because you could have easily destroyed it then and there. So that's why I'm almost wondering, did Rabbit have other plans for it, but he's not telling the Vice President Baines the truth about it? I can only assume, because I'm like, there's no way. I mean, what he said about Rabbit does make sense, that Rabbit would never want humans to have access to being able to kind of open portals to the Makai. But yeah, they shoot Anders and send him flying out because his daughters were never kidnapped. They just had eyes on his daughters. Like, hey, I just want to protect my family. He's like, this world is already hell on earth, so you think it's that much different? And, obviously you see a lot of the parallels between Rabbit and Baines. I mean, we've already, like I said, talked about it multiple times. Like, yeah, Baines is coming off like a madman. So he's just the opposite end of the spectrum of Rabbit, which is so ironic. They're both like, as Mary said last episode, about kind of like the ruthlessness and just the kind of craziness of humans, and it's like, yeah, it's personifying in Baines. They're just two sides of the same coin, because they're both humans who just want two different things. He wants to rule the demon world and kind of like amalgamate all that power, and just because they're both zealots in their own way. He's a zealot for the Lord, and Rabbit was a zealot for the demons, for the Makai, which is interesting too, because we will never know Rabbit's real name. Just like Lady is just always Lady to Dante, even though her real name's Mary, Rabbit will always just be Rabbit to us, because we never actually got to know his name. And I guess that's kind of part of it too, that it solidifies his identification as like part of the demons and being Rabbit, like him not having like that human name anymore. That human identity died the moment he found himself in Makai living there. But yeah. But also, going back to it, Anders not dead. He got shot, but he's in the water. So I'm like, okay, we'll see him. That will be interesting to see what role he potentially could play in the future. I mean, I'm sure he'd probably try to sneak off back to his family, but either way, Baines went full, once again, holy war. And that was kind of something Dante had also brought up too. Like, oh yeah, like, well, considering your approach, he's like, oh, this war isn't what we went looking for. It's like, you kind of went looking for it and you found it. And it's like, yeah, he's like, I'm not going to be part of your war, because war isn't Dante's thing. But it's like, yeah, big powerful demon shows up, which eventually it will, because you're going to go looking for trouble and you're going to find it, and I'll step in then. But then they try to capture him in that moment, and it all comes full circle with Mary capturing him at the very end. So, but I mean, we're on different sides of things, because she doesn't look at him as like a terrible person. She knows what Dante did, that he is someone they can count on, but it's still like for the greater good, you have to base. And I'm curious how she feels about seeing what happens to Dante at the end. He's like basically put in stasis and everything. Like, even though he's going to be this world's main protector, it's like, yeah, but you're trusting Baines too much, because she doesn't see how twisted and zealot he is. But also, like, he's the one that basically took her in. So like I said, he's kind of a pseudo father figure after what happened with your own father. So she's kind of filling that void in herself, putting her trust in the wrong person when she should be putting her trust in the right person. Even though she did, that trust in Dante is outweighed by the history and trust she has for Baines, which is misplaced. But then we see him just like leveling Makai, which is so sad, because I'm curious how Lady feels about that. Once again, she's unaware that Baines ordered the execution of those people. They didn't die because of Rabbit. Once again, they would have either way, but that was still like they were killed already beforehand. I mean, if it wasn't for Baines' actions, things wouldn't have popped off the way they did. That's why Plasma did what he did, because he's just like, all right, this is my my martyr moment just because you guys gave me the push and be like, oh yeah, you savages, I need to kill you just to make my mark and make my sacrifice. Either way, like they leveled Makai, and you see so many innocent people dying, and that's the conundrum with that. It's like, I mean, you are waging war on people who are just living their lives. They don't agree with everything that's going down. You're doing that, and it's so interesting because you're like planting your flag in the demon world, but it's like, well, what about Mundus? I guess he's just biding. Well, he's technically biding his time, but he sends out his go-to warrior by the end. What really surprised me was when we saw a familiar face. I was like, holy shit. I was like, isn't that the main antagonist from DMC2 standing beside the Vice President? I have not played DMC2 in so long. I don't even remember Home Dude's motivations. I think it's like, I don't think it's as zealot based as Bane's, but I think he has his own reasons for wanting to utilize the demon world. I think he's a regular human. I think he's a regular human taking advantage of the demon world. I don't think it's a thing of he's a demon. I think he is a regular human because I just don't remember his motivation. But that's interesting because I'm like, oh, so are you connecting Bane's in him? Once again, we saw Lucia here. So I guess this whole, like, the future was like, well, because I know DMC 2, very much like 4, takes place on a specific, well, 1, 2, and 4 take place in a very specific location. I want to say they're all like, definitely 1 and 4 are definitely on an island, different islands. But I want to say 2 takes place on an island too, but I can't remember. But either way, we saw Lucia, so it would make sense. So I guess like in the future, we could always count her in. Because like I said, after 2, I don't think she's made any other appearances, but I could be misremembering. I don't even think she popped up in 5 to my recollection, not unless there were some winks and nods to her. So once again, there's also another character that's part of Dante's squad we haven't seen, so I'm curious how that character is going to get. If I can say the name because they haven't come up, but like Trish. In what way will Trish pop up in this story, considering everything? It's like, well, with the storyline being what it is, you still could have Trish come up because she could still play a similar role. Like Mundus could utilize her in a very similar manner, so she still could pop up in the future. But yeah, America's planted their flag. The president's announced to the U.S. and now it's going to be worldwide news. All that crazy stuff you saw, I shouldn't consider this from you anymore. Demons are real, but don't worry, America, we're doing our thing. It's also going to be interesting to see how, well, we're handling this mainly on the U.S. front. Obviously, it started off in the Vatican in the beginning of the season, but it's like, what's the world reaction going to be to demons? We see like the American reaction, but how do other countries feel? I could definitely see us entering like a Stranger Things thing as you see like the U.S. is doing its thing, but also Russia's doing its own thing with the upside down. I can definitely see where other countries are trying to replicate this and trying to claim the demon world for their own. I can definitely see that being an interesting element to it. Because obviously like DMC Devil May Cry the reboot dealt with kind of like, not even, I wonder would that be too, that kind of dealt with like the corporatization of demons. But DMC Devil May Cry kind of did that too, where it's like, I don't know if corporatization of demons would be the right word. I don't know if that's the right phrasing, but like the way they handle demons in DMC Devil May Cry is so interesting that I'm like, I could definitely, like I said, Home Dude from DMC2, I don't remember his motivations, but like it feels like what this story's handling, kind of, not exactly, but it tiptoes in a certain direction with the DMC. Like it's very vague. It's not as like one-to-one or direct, but I feel like you could draw parallels in some degrees, not in the biggest, broadest strokes, but like, I don't know. I'm probably talking on my ass here. It probably makes no sense, but I'm so curious to know what Lady's feeling like in the aftermath of everything, seeing how everything unfolded. She chose her side, and now she's probably regretting it, which is ironic considering the whole point was, oh, Dante probably is going to regret this side he chose. I mean, Dante was kind of, at the end of the day, did what he always did. He protects humanity and yada, 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 but it's also like, Dante does what he wants. But he is mainly on humanity's side more than he is demon's side, but still. This will probably split it a little bit more, but I also went out on my massive tangent. I meant to also, I touched on it a little bit, was like, Bane's doing what he's doing is radicalizing Makaians who wanted nothing, who were not going to ever be a threat to you, who are being subjugated by the demon world. Now they're looking at it as like, well, we need to serve Mundus because he's the only one. He sent his top guy here to rescue us, so we have to be indebted to him. So those who would have never been threats or enemies are now definite threats and enemies because of your actions. You came in here with an iron fist planning to conquer and do what you want to in your holy war. You brought this war to your doorstep. Yeah, it was kind of brought to yours, but you kind of went looking for it, and you definitely brought it back home with you. But yes, the ending the way it did, I thought was beautiful with Virgil showing up. And like, even in that form he's in right now, doing his move where he does like, you see the screen get like slash multiple times. I'm like, oh, yes. Because every DMC nerd, it gets super hard about, Virgil's moveset. Like, they have names and stuff like that, but I'm not going to remember all the names. But it's just like, his moveset is the most anime moveset you can get. Your traditional swordsman thing of, oh, he slashes past you, and you get, like, slashed, like, 15 times. It's like, as we saw on the screen, I was like, oh, that shit is so fucking cool. But I wasn't expecting him to be, like, de-transformed. So I was like, oh, that state's kind of your DT, which Virgil has a DT himself, sure, very much like Dante. Everything that Dante can do, he can pretty much do. And obviously we see he's got Yamato by his side. But that's not how that form operates in one. It's just a form he's stuck in. But, I mean, maybe once again, maybe there is a canon thing of, no, that's him in a perpetual DT state. But the fact is he could control it is what I was thinking, because he couldn't really control it in one. Like, he stays in that state. But once again, we're talking about the first game, which is not timeline. It's not the first story in that canon. Once again, it's 3. But, you can retroactively change stuff by retroactively retconning stuff. But it's like, well, this is kind of its own thing. So you can make it like, no, like, he even said, like, I was freed from basically my shackles because of Mundus. So that's why he's loyal to Mundus, because even though, like, does he not know that Mundus is the one that sent the people after his family? So he probably doesn't know that. He thinks Mundus saved him from the demons that killed his mom and took him. And yeah, it's so fascinating. But yeah, like, it's going to be interesting because it's probably going to be Virgil rescuing his brother. And it's interesting because obviously Dante and Virgil have their antagonistic relationship even in 3. But I could definitely see this dynamic playing a little closer to DMC Devil May Cry, where it's like they both want to stop Mundus, but then it becomes a thing. And it kind of comes down to that always, even in DMC 5 when it comes to Virgil and Dante. But the whole notion of just kind of like they don't see eye to eye and they come to blows at the end because they have different perspectives on. Because I think, if I remember from DMC Devil May Cry, Virgil wants to replace Mundus. It's like, no. Mundus running things his way. You and me, Dante, we can run things different. We can make things better, but Dante doesn't agree with it, and then they end up clashing. So I could definitely see a thing where Virgil rescues Dante, and he wants Dante to help serve under Mundus. It's like, Mundus is the better option. Can you really trust these humans after what they did? And probably Mary trying to be the human conscience, being like, no, don't do this, and because Dante's obviously driven also by the memories of his mom and who she was and what happened to her and his resentment towards demons because of that. But much like Mary, his perspective on demons has kind of changed. Maybe not to the extreme levels that Mary's did, but I mean, who knows? Because it's just, this whole adventure changed both of them. So like, it's just going to be interesting to see what the potential future holds on how they end up going through the story. Like I said, you're kind of pseudo did a DMC 3 storyline where you're throwing in other stuff too. So it's going to be interesting. And you're throwing in stuff from 2. You're throwing in stuff from 1. You're throwing in stuff from 5. Which I should also note, I love the whole last line being like, he was like, oh, they brought this storm upon themselves or something, and I am that storm. And then going into burying the light, or bury the light. Oh, that was so fucking good. I was like, yes, that's so sick. Because it's a DMC 5 song, but I do believe it's specifically Virgil's theme, isn't it? I believe, I could be wrong, but I do believe it's specifically Virgil's theme. But either way, that was so fucking good. So yeah, and I do love the outro, the ending card just being like, yeah, that murder board, that board that was against like Darkham, and it's on fire. I didn't know what to expect for this ending, and this wasn't. I knew it ended on a cliffhanger, sure, and I guess it kind of ends where I kind of said it was, where it was going to be like, oh, Mundus is coming, but I was not expecting the whole like, oh, we're going into the demon world and we're nuking it. I kind of wasn't expecting that, but yeah, and once again, definitely wasn't expecting DMC2's main antagonist. But yeah, it's going to be crazy to see what the future potentially holds. Obviously, I just looked it up at the time of recording this. It is April 5th. Yes, at the time of recording this. So the season's only been out for 2 days. So at this time, it's unclear whether or not Netflix is going to give more seasons to the show. Obviously, Castlevania got quite a few seasons, even got another series in the form of Nocturne. So, and obviously there's plenty more story to tell and more characters to introduce and more stuff to pull from the DMC game. So like there's plenty more story to be told in a lot of ways. But obviously hopes are high for season 2, and I guess depending on the reception, which once again, I try not to pay too much attention, but the reception for this seems to be pretty good. But once again, I haven't read any in-depth reviews. I rarely do. But the general thing I'm seeing on the little corners of the internet I've looked have been like, oh, generally positive about this. But, that doesn't mean everyone's feeling that way. But either way, I hope the show gets a second season. I hope we go further because I love this, and it was, once again, I think it's a really nice love letter to DMC, and I'd love to see where they take the story. Big question too is, well, since we got Johnny Young Bosch voicing Dante, what the fuck does that mean if and potentially when we get a Virgil in this? What the hell is going to happen then? Oh, also, Virgil's, because I kept seeing his name in the credits, and I kept thinking, like, why does the name Robbie Damon, who's voicing Virgil, I was like, why does that sound so familiar? He's a voice actor where I'm like, oh man, I know so much stuff that he's in. He's Lloyd in Trails of Cold Steel. What was it? I think 4 on. He might have been him in 2 as well. But either way, Prompto from Final Fantasy 15, Akechi from Persona 5. So yeah, just a few things, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like I recognize the voice actor, I just don't always recognize his name. But anyway, so yeah, it's going to be very, very exciting to see what the future holds. Like I said, fingers crossed, hoping for not just a season 2, but beyond. But at bare minimum, I'm ready and waiting for a season 2. Might take a while to. I mean, now that it kind of got the groundwork done, maybe it probably won't be as long between season 1 and season 2. I don't know what Castlevania's production schedule was like, so I don't know like how long passed between all the seasons. That'd probably give you a good enough idea of like how long it take for season 2 of this if it gets one. But yeah, I've rambled on long enough, and I'll leave things there. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.